Hello students, welcome back to Tuition Masters, and today we are here with our next chapter of grade 9 history, which is the French Revolution. This is a lecture number 1 where we are going to learn about the French society and the outbreak of revolution. Now students, as an introduction, we know that in India what happened when there were British rule. So in India we had many revolutions, we had many revolts, right? Like the Quit India movement, right, and non-cooperation movements, then revolt of 1857. All of these were there for the betterment of a country, right? Similarly, there are many other countries as well where such revolutions and revolts took place. In this chapter we are studying about France, where a revolution took place. What was the reason, what was the results, outcomes, aftermath, we are going to study in this chapter. Right. Now students, when I say about the French Revolution, the meaning is that it is a period from 1789 to 1799. This much long period it is, and it began with whom? It began with the Estates General. Now, what was this Estates General? We are going to study ahead, right? So it started to begin with the Estates General, correct, and a formation of the French Consulate, correct. So what happened was that French, it was facing some issues. Now this is a picture. Now, what does it looks like? It looks like a fort. It looks like a palace. Yes, we are correct. So this is basically known as a Bastille. It was the Bastille in Versailles. Where is Versailles? Again in France. So this was a Bastille. Now, students, what happened is in 14th July 1789, what happened was that Paris was in a state of alarm as the king Louis XVI, who was the king that time? It was Louis XVI. Louis XVI was the king during that time. Correct? He had commanded his troops to move into the city. Correct? He commanded his troops to move into the city. What happened was the men, women, all the entire the population broke into a number of government buildings and the fortress prison. What was the fortress prison? It was this Bastille. Correct? Now, this Bastille was hated by everyone. Why was it hated? Because it stood for the despotic powers of the king. It was a symbol of the despotic powers, despotic powers of the king. So it showed those powers, those hereditary power which the king got, and the king Louis XVI who was misusing it. So this Bastille was a representative of that power, showing the despotic powers of the king. And this Bastille was hated by the people. And in the following days, people even protested against the high price of bread. What happened was bread was the staple food over there. Now we know in India like rice, wheat, that is the staple food, right? Like every day we have intake of it. But in France, the bread was the staple food. So what happened was this Bastille was hated by everyone because it stood for the despotic powers. It stood for the despotic powers. And what happened was in the coming days, there were several people who revolted against it, right? Louis XVI, he was um, from the Bourbon, like Bourbon rule, correct? So let's see ahead. Now, students, the French society. When I talk about the French society, this French society had three estate. It was a estate system. What were the three estates now? The first estate, the topmost estate was the clergy. It was the clergy. Second one was nobility, and the third one was the peasantry. Now what is the meaning of all these things now? So students, when I say about the first estate, which was the clergy, they included whom? They included the members of the church. The members of the church, they had the highest powers, and they were on the first estate, which was the clergy. Nobility on the second estate was where the people who were very rich, correct, but below the church. Those were the nobles, the nobility. And peasantry were the remaining people, for example, artisans, then businessmen, correct, businessmen, correct, all of these etc were the peasantry. Now what happened is there were taxes which were imposed by Louis XVI on France. What happened during that time is that there was a rule: clergy and nobility should enjoy facilities, whereas the third estate, which was the peasantry, will only pay the taxes. This means that the taxes, whatever taxes, whether it be very high, whatever it be, only and only the peasantry, the third estate, is going to pay the taxes. What will clergy and nobility do? They are going to sit and enjoy the powers. Now, big businessmen, merchants, court officials, all they were in the third estate. Peasants, 90% of them were peasants and artisans, right? And small peasant, landless, labor, and servants, they only had the burden of paying the taxes. Now comes the Bourbon Dynasty. What? Bourbon Dynasty. Now, Bourbon Dynasty. What was the Bourbon Dynasty? It was the dynasty from where Louis XVI was there, right? And in 1774, the France was a monarch, and Louis XVI, wife of Louis XVI, was Austrian princess Marie Antoinette. Okay, she was the princess of Louis XVI, and who was Louis XVI? He was from the Bourbon Dynasty. Now, when Louis XVI became the ruler of France, what happened was he got an empty treasury. Correct? What happened when he had become the king? He got an empty treasury. Correct? What do you mean by treasury now? Now, whenever there is taxes collected, some war took place, all of this thing, what happened? The money of the whole country stored in the palace, in the treasury. In that treasury the money is there, right? Now that treasury was empty. Why was it empty? Because during that time Louis XVI and France was in a debt. They were in a debt. Why in a debt? Let me erase this 1 second. So what happened was they were in a debt. What happened is France was helping. Now France, what was doing? France was helping whom? France was helping American countries to gain independence. So American countries. France was helping American. Now American countries had war and everything during that time. So France were giving them financial support to America. But what happened? On the other hand, the France was getting lost. Correct? France was going in the depth day by day. Correct? So they were going in the depth. What happened is the depth. They were more than a billion livers to a debt that had already risen to more than 2 billion livers. Now there was a depth of 2 billion, not even million, 2 billion livres. Now what is livres? Livres is nothing but the currency in France. Okay, currency of France is livres. So that time 2 billion livres was the depth the France was in. So it's so much, right? It was so much. Louis XVI was helping American countries to gain support, and he was going himself in debt. Correct. Now, the lenders who gave the state credit began to charge 10% interest on loans. If you're taking the loans, you have to pay 10% of interest rate. Correct? So, the cost of maintaining an extravagant court at the immense palace of Versailles added to the adversities. Now, what happened was that time the what were the financial crisis? As I said, extravagant court. What do you mean by extravagant? The court and palace, the court and palace was where they were at Versailles. They were at Versailles, and they had a very fashionable court. Correct? Very fashionable and fancy court they had. So to maintain that, money was spent. After that, 13 American colonies they helped them. So again 2 billion liveries depth was there. 60% of the land which was owned by the nobles, the church, and the richer members of the third estate. 60%, the 60% of the land was there with the nobility and the richer members of the third estate. And what did Louis 16 do? Louis 16 said that okay, now I am in financial crisis. What will I do is, there is no other option. I can't give money from my pocket. So what will I do? I will increase the taxes. So what did Louis 16 do? He said now it's time to increase the taxes. I'll now increase the taxes so that my treasury gets above, because the treasury was totally empty. So to increase the treasury, he said that now more taxes will be there. So nobility and clergy, they didn't have any problem. Why? Because all the burden of the activities was there on the third estate alone. Only the third estate, the peasantry, were there to do the work of the taxes. They only had to pay the taxes, even for the nobility and clergy. Right? Now, what were the struggle to survive? Firstly, firstly was there was a blast in population. Population rose from 23 million to 28 million directly. There was a population blast in France, right? There was a population blast. What happened then? As the population is more, so there was increase in demand of bread. Correct. Now, if population is more, so the staple food is bread. So what happened? The prices for bread increases, and as the demand increases, so price will also increase. So demand of bread was more and more, so price also rose more and more. But the problem was that the wages given to the people who worked was same. Now, when for example, take you're currently the you're getting a salary of 1,000 rupees. Okay, just imagine 1,000 rupees is your salary currently, and your food, how the for food you spend 200 rupees. Okay, 200 rupees you spend for food, and remaining you keep it. Now the prices are rose, and now again still you're getting rupees 1,000 only, but your food purposes became of rupees 800 now. So what, is it a benefit? No, it's not a benefit. Although the prices increased, but the wages, the salary remained the same. So that wasn't possible, because if the prices are increasing, so you should even increase the wages also, right? So that was again a problem. So this resulted to something. It resulted to something known as subsistence crisis. What did it result in? It resulted in subsistence subsistence crisis. Correct, where there were very huge fight and like fight for the wars and everything. Right? Now, middle class. After this, what happened is that there were people added in the third estate. In the third estate, there were some people added known as middle class. Now, in the 18th century, there was an emergence of social groups who were named as middle class. And in the third estate, they were the prosperous group. Now, merchant, manufacturers who earned the wealth through the overseas trade and good manufacturing, they were included in this middle class group. Correct. And what happened was they were educated and advocated merit over privileges by birth. So the professionals educated, and they believe that no society should be privileged by birth, but yes, they were advocated merit over the privileges. Now, once this condition was going on, there were few philosophers. So this is basically the ideas of different philosophers. Idea of philosophers. Now, there were three philosophers who gave their opinions and ideas. First one was John Locke. Now, John Locke, he wrote a book, Two Treatises of Government. What book? Treatises of Government. What did he say there is that he refused the doctrine of divine and absolute right of monarch. What does it means? That he said that the doctrine of divine means the king is everything, king is the god, that's it, king is the divine power. No, that should not be the thing. And the right of monarch, that you are all telling, okay, King Louis 16, Louis 16, no, that's not right. Give your opinions, stand up for yourself. That was what John Locke's idea was. Second came Jean Jacques Rousseau. He said the social contract. It wasn't a book. He just proposed a social contract that people of France and the king, the government, there should be a contract between the people, their representatives and the government. Representatives from the people and the government, they should have a contract with each other. That's what Rousseau had proposed, the social contract. And third philosopher was Montesquieu, who wrote the book The Spirit of Laws. What does the Spirit of Laws said? He gave division of power within the government between the legislative, executive, and judiciary. So what did he say? That in his book Montesquieu, The Spirit of Laws, he said that the government should be divided with power. There should be like a federal system. Like it should be legislative, there should be a legislative assembly, then there should be executive also, executive, and then there should be judiciary. Because that time, what was the condition? There was only the king who had the powers. But Montesquieu said that in his book, that there should be a division of power in these three criteria: legislative, executive, and judiciary. So remember the main thing. John Locke wrote the book Two Treatises of Government. Jean Jacques Rousseau just gave a social contract. It wasn't a book. And Montesquieu wrote again a book, The Spirit of Laws. Now, next let's move towards the Estate General. Now, students, on on 5th May, on 5th May 1789, there was a assembly called by Louis XVI. Louis XVI had called an assembly, okay, and he called all the three estates, the clergy, nobility, as well as the peasantry. He called all of them. Where? In the hall of Versailles. In the hall of Versailles. In the hall of Versailles, he had called the three estates. Correct. And why did he call? Because he proposed to increase the taxes. To increase the taxes, he had called this estate general, the assembly of 5th May 1789. Now what happened was that from the first estate, the noble clergy, 300 people came. From the second estate, the nobility, again 300 members came. And from the third estate, the peasantry, 600 people came. Okay, now what was the problem here? The thing was that all of these, there were three things, correct? There were three estates. So what was the rule? That each estate will have one vote. This will have one vote, nobility will have one vote, and even peasantry will also have one vote only. Means in total three votes will be there. If the taxes, if two votes are given to the taxes, yes, they can be increased, so yes, it will be increased. So whether there will be 1,000 people also, take suppose in this thing, uh, peasantry, the third estate, if there are 1,000 people also, then also they will give one vote only. So that was the problem. Now what did third estate do? The third estate demanded that these 600 members of the third estate demanded that the voting should be conducted by the assembly as a whole, and each member should have one vote rather than each estate having one vote. So what did they do? They said that okay, we should, each one of the 600 members, each of them should have one vote. It's not like everyone will have only one estate will have one vote, not like that. But what did Louis 16 do? Louis 16 said no, this is not going to happen. There, whatever the rule is, that will be the rule. You are no one to change it. So what happened? They were very angry. The third estate, the peasantry became very angry, and all of them moved out of the hall of Versailles and in a protest. Now what happened? Next comes the tennis court oath. What comes? Tennis court oath. Now what was it? Let's understand that. Now when after this assembly of 5th May 1789, when Louis XVI had rejected the third, the peasantry, they had went in anger. Correct. Now what happened is on June 20 June 1789, what happened is that the peasantry, the third estate people, came in a tennis court of Versailles. They came in a tennis court of Versailles, and what they said, that from today onwards, we, the third estate people, are going to be known as National Assembly. They said that we are going to be known as National Assembly. They said that we are National Assembly from today. Correct, right? So this was the third estate. What did they do? And they swore that they won't dissolve, they won't disperse till they had drafted a constitution to limit the Louis XVI powers, the monarch powers. Okay, now who was the leaders? Now, National Assembly, it was led by two people, Marabeau and Abbassius. So these two people were the leaders of the National Assembly. Now, Abbassius, originally he was a priest who wrote a influential pamphlet called What is the Third Estate. So basically, Abbassius, they were from the clergy nobility only, but still they came and supported the third estate. Correct. Now he wrote a pamphlet. What a pamphlet named as What is the Third Estate. He wrote that pamphlet. Who? Abbassius wrote this pamphlet. Right. Now what happened was, now we are coming towards our next date, which is 14th July 1789. Now what happened was that there was bad harvest in France. There was bad harvest, and what happened again? Bad harvest, so prices of bread rose. That now the bread price was touching sky. Now, at the same time, what happened? The king ordered the troops to move into France, and not France, sorry, Paris, and attack. So on 14 July, the angry, agitated crowd stormed and destroyed the Bastille. So the Bastille, which was there, the people said that now we are going to destroy it, and they went and destroyed the Bastille. Okay, on 14th July 1789. Now, at long queues in the bakery, the angry woman, here you can see in this picture, the people are very angry, bread prices are high. What did you do? The women, they started to fight and snatch breads. Correct. So what happened is, what was the outcome from this now? The outcome was that Louis XVI said that okay, we are going to agree to the National Assembly, we won't fight ahead. So this was this outcome. So we can say this was the aftermath. This was the aftermath of the entire thing which they do. And what was the result? The feudal system. The feudal system was abolished. So the feudal system was abolished. Let's understand what happened. Louis XVI, firstly, he said that okay, you all, the National Assembly, the third estate, we are going to recognize you. Whatever you say, we will follow that. And on the night of 4th August, dates are very important. 4th August 1789, what happened was that the assembly, National Assembly, abolished the feudal system of obligations and taxes. What was the feudal system? That the clergy, nobility, from birth they have privileges, nothing to do that way. That was removed. There is only burden on the third estate to pay taxes. Removed. So the National Assembly removed it, and the main thing was the constitution. They started to make a constitution after the tennis court oath, right? And the members of the clergy, the first estate, they were also said that no, you are not going to get any privileges now. You have to give up your privileges. No privileges by birth. Now, tithes. What were tithes now? Tithes or teeth, you can pronounce it anyways. What was that? It was a kind of tax. So tithes, it was a tax, right? It was a tax, in indirect tax on um, France, which again only the third estate will pay. That was also abolished. And the church, the land which was owned by the church, the nobility, and that was taken and confiscated. Now, what happened next was that as a result, the government acquired assets worth at least 2 billion. There was, they acquired all the assets of the place, which was at least of 2 billion livres, right? So this was the condition. Now what happened is that France became a constitutional monarchy. Why now understand this word constitutional monarchy? What does that mean? Previously it was a monarchy. Now also king was there, but the king Louis XVI will work based upon the constitution. Now the constitution is the National Assembly made, right? Based on that only they would do. Now students, I'll give you few important dates before moving ahead, and the one two dates and even some important points. Now students, see this, what happened was we knew that this France became a constitutional monarchy. Now in 1791, 1791, the draft of constitution which was made by the National Assembly, that was completed. So draft of constitution was completed. So the draft which was there for the constitution, it was completed in 1791. What was the objective of it? To limit the powers of the monarch. Now again, you remember Montesquieu had said in the spirit of laws that it should be divided into legislative, judiciary, and that way. So yes, they, in this constitution, the powers were separated into legislative, executive, and the judiciary. We are going to understand with the important flow chart now, right? So National Assembly, as I said, the power of them. National Assembly, let me write it here. See this. The National Assembly, what was their main power? They do the law making. The laws which will be there, it will be made by the National Assembly, correct? And they will be indirectly like elected by the active citizens. I'll explain you what is active and passive citizens, and what is the eligibility. Only man. Now see, there was one more problem that was again there for the in France, that the governmental system, whether it be National Assembly, the court, everywhere, only men were allowed to do, women weren't allowed. So we'll go ahead in that upcoming session. So National Assembly, as I said, the eligibility was that the man had to belong to the highest bracket of taxpayers. That was the eligibility. Okay. Now, coming over here, what is this whole thing? Let's understand. First of all, there are two types of citizens. First one were active citizens and other were passive citizens. When I say active citizens, what do they mean? That the men who were about 25 years and paid taxes to at least 3 days of a laborer's wage. Those were the active citizens. Okay, so I'll write it over here. Active citizens means that the about 25 years and men only. Okay, no women were allowed. So about 25 years and regular taxes. So those are the active citizens, they could give the votes. Okay, and there were about 4 million population, about of 28 million, about 4 million of them were the active citizens. Now who were passive? Passive citizens were the men, like the children and youth and the women. They were the passive citizens because the women weren't allowed to vote or do any participation in the government body. So those were the passive citizens. What happened was that first one, these people will vote the legislature. In the legislature they will vote the electors. Electors means every 50,000 men in the elector system. Now these 50,000 men will vote the 745 members of the National Assembly. Who will be in the National Assembly? 745 people. Now, this 745 people will control the executive, the king and even the ministers. So the ministers and the king will be controlled by the 745 National Assembly, and the king will give the veto power to the National Assembly, right? And then at the end will be the judge as the judiciary. Now, Declaration of Rights of Human, of sorry, not human, of man and citizen. Now, what was this thing? Let's understand that now. So basically, there were some natural and inalienable rights, which were, for example, I'll say, right to life, right to life. Then there was freedom of speech. As you all know, we in India, we in our constitution, we have the fundamental rights, correct? So similarly in France also, they had the natural and inalienable rights, which were the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen. Then freedom of opinion, freedom of opinion, and the last one was the equality before law. Equality before law. So these were the Declaration of Rights. Now, after France had signed the constitution, Louis XVI had entered into some secret negotiations with the king of Prussia. Okay, not Russia, Prussia, I'm telling Prussia. So he was in secret negotiations. Now, National Assembly in April 1792, they said that now there will be a war against Prussia and Austria. We are going to declare a war. Now, people, they joined the army as they saw that there was a war, and people against the kings and different aristocracies all over the Europe. Now, what was the people's reaction to the war? Now, people were very enthusiastic and they sung some patriotic songs like Mercedes, right? And it is right now the national anthem also, correct? Now, after this was done, there were few political signs. There were some political symbols of the government. Let's see them now. So the first one, the political symbol was broken chain. Now, what does broken chain mean? Yeah, I'll write you the meanings also over here. So, our first one was the broken chain. Broken chain means what? Chain represents if you're slaving someone, right? So, broken chain means no slavery, means no, everyone should be free, there shouldn't be any slavery, right? Next one was a bundle of rods or fasces. Now what does this means? The one rod, we know that one rod can easily be broken, but if we have a bundle of rods, there is unity. So this stood for unity, that there are so many rods, right? So they stood for the unity, that no one can break these many rods easily. Next was this symbol, the eye within a triangle, which is giving out light. So what does this do? The all this eye is seeing everyone, and the rise of sun will drive away the clouds of ignorance. Correct. So it was a kind of acknowledgement, right? Acknowledgement kind of thing, that this eye is looking at every day. There is acknowledgement, and the clouds of ignorance, it will be like removed by these rays. These rays you can see, these one, it will be removed by those rays. So that was the symbol. Next was a sceptre. Now sceptre was what? It was a symbol of royal power, royalty, correct? The royal power, that stood for the sceptre. Now next was a snake is biting its tail and making such a ring kind of. Can you say it's a ring? Right, so that is a snake who's biting its tail to form a ring structure. What was it? It was a symbol of eternity. It was a symbol of eternity. Okay, it stood for eternity. That a ring, as we know, it doesn't have any end, neither a beginning, so it stood for eternity. Next one we have is the red Phrygian cap. Now, what was this now? It was a cap which were worn by the slaves, right, upon becoming free. So, slaves when free. So, the slaves when free, they wore these caps. So, that is what the symbol stood for. Alright, now Okay, next we have is blue, white and red. Okay, blue, white and red, these are the national colors of France. Even in the flag it is there. Next is the winged woman. Winged woman stands for the personification of law, that there is law in the country. And the last one is this law tablet, that the law is equal for all. Correct. The law is equal for all, and all are equal before the law. So that this law tablet stood for that purpose. So thank you so much, students, for watching today's video. I hope we studied many new things in a form of story, right? And in the next session, we'll complete this chapter by understanding how this revolution was continued, and how the slavery and other things were abolished, right? So don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit on the bell icon so that you get regular notifications of the videos. And don't forget to comment if you have any doubts or queries. I'll be seeing you in the next video. Till then, take care and goodbye.